I live out here in the country. It's hard for me to believe that these, country beekeepers are actually going to go to a veterinarian and pay that sort of money to a vet and get a script for antibiotics. So I want to ask you, are beekeepers being compliant with this rule? Is there a way for them to get antibiotics, like contraband antibiotics, some way to treat their bees on some level? Or how is this unfolding? Are beekeepers really going to vets for their script for their bees?
Yeah, so some beekeepers are doing that, and some beekeepers have relationships with their veterinarians, so maybe the price isn't quite as high, as it could be for somebody that doesn't already have an existing relationship. So there is some of that going on. You bring up the black market a little bit. There's antibiotics that people stocked up on. So there were some of the beekeeping suppliers that said, hey, this new rule starts in January, make sure you stock up now. So there's a lot of antibiotic that's probably been, stocked up on, and people have it in their back room. Beekeepers are ones that will use that kind of stuff until it really doesn't work at all. And the big question that we have for a lot of this is, do we really even need to use this? So that's, the prophylactic use against American foul brood signs is something that a lot of people say we don't need to do that. If we find it, we should burn those hives so that we eliminate the reservoir for the other hives. And then, hopefully after we do that a few times, we won't see that disease around very much. So that disease, used to be very high prevalence. So in New York State, they say in the 1940s, about 40% of the hives had that disease. And now they're down under, 1 to 2%. And
that's not through the use of antibiotics, but this method of catching it and then eliminating the source, burning the hives.
Yeah, so we have bee inspectors, and that's the disease that they've all been targeting. So they're going out looking for this. When they find it, they burn the hives. There's been antibiotic use as well to keep it from spreading, but at the base of this is just burning. Each little bee that dies of this disease has 2.5 billion spores in its body. That's enough to infect probably pretty much every bee in the world.
So if I'm a veterinary professional and I want to learn more about bees, are there courses that you're teaching or courses available at some of the veterinary schools? How can I learn more?
Yeah, so some of the veterinary schools do have classes. I know they started something at Cornell. I'm not sure about other veterinary schools. And there are a number of CE events. So I've been teaching at some of these different courses. And there's a group called the Honeybee Veterinary Consortium. And I just came from this past weekend. We had our first convention in North Carolina. So we had 160 veterinarians, beekeepers that came in for this meeting to learn about honeybees and their diseases.
Wow. Any courses for licensed technicians that you know of?
So I'm not sure of any classes just for technicians, but I think in a lot of these big, CE events, I don't think technicians are turned away at the door if they want to come in. The trouble for a technician is that, if you're out trying to make a diagnosis, a lot of the practice acts say that you have to have the veterinary license in order to be able to make the diagnosis. As far as a technician, there's opportunities there. So one of the commercial beekeepers that we work with around here has asked before, how do I get somebody that's just going to come out to my apiaries and go through and do my disease testing? So the biggest problem that we have in honeybees is varroa mites. Varroa mites are a horrible problem. They spread viruses, and the way that we keep those viruses from being a problem is we check for the varroa mites and we treat so that their numbers stay down under 3% infection rate. So 3 mites on 100 bees is enough to vector a huge viral epidemic. So one of the places technicians could do some good work is to go through and test hives for, varroa mite levels. To go through and apply that test, do it correctly, do it repeatedly, and kind of pick out which ones are we going to do so that we've got a representative sample. That would be a good spot if a clinic had a technician interested in bees, that they'd be able to utilize that service.